The NBS some 2 days ago released the IGR figures, and from the figures it shows Abia's has actually reduced by 12%. What exactly is the state doing in terms of either reform of its IRS, capturing more in the tax system? So what exactly are you doing in terms of your IGR to boost IGR?
As of half year 2017, we had about 7 billion at this stage, but half year 2018, we're having 6-point-something billion. Now, what happened was, towards the beginning of the year, we had a change of revenue agent, or the people that are in charge of codifying our revenues, and part of what the ERGP team recommended was sustainable IGR systems, and we got consultants to work on that for us. And within that period of transition, some people, of course, there was a bit of a confusion who to pay to, so we said, in order for people not to profit from that, everybody hold on to payment. When we finish transiting from one system to another of who the consultants are, then you can reduce paying. So that shot our payments in a month or two by what it should have been, and this is basically flying revenue.
Abia State Internal Revenue Service is going through overhaul currently, and one of the things that the state intends to do is to professionalize the service beyond what obtains in the civil service. And so that has accounted for the lag that you identified. And we hope that in a couple of months from now, that restructuring process would have been completed, and we'll go back to what we expect our IGR to be. So currently there is restructuring that is going on there, and that's actually why you observe, you made the observation.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. It was quite interesting. But one question I have, I would like to know what the state's current efforts towards gender mainstreaming actually is.
Okay, we came into this place yesterday around 8 p.m. The reason was because the rest of the team were waiting for me to come back from one of the communities, one of the remotest communities in Abia State, where we are, what we are doing currently is we are reaching out to various marginalized groups, not just about men and women, but also youths. And so we have decided in our current budget, 2019 budget, to specifically identify or make provisions for the youths, for the women, and for the men, based on the needs that we have identified across our communities. So that is actually what we are doing differently right now. By the time our 2019 budget comes on board, you will see what has been provided to address the needs of various gender groups.
We're not keeping quiet on that gender issue. We want to make sure that as far as our budgeting system is concerned, the planning system, when we have evidence-based mainstreaming strategy, and that report will address it significantly.
Thank you very much for a job well done. I just want to get some clarification. When you are presenting, majorly you are talking about the statistician general. Although coincidentally, I think you just mentioned the planning commission. I was like, I need to have a very good understanding of the structure you have in place and how your planning is actually being done, because you said a bulk of the thing is with the statistician general.
The State Planning Commission is the umbrella body that manages both statistics and planning. And the government has gone ahead to say, let us have a Bureau of Statistics. So we can have an agency solely in charge of data production. And that is why they have passed into law. And incidentally, I'm the Assistant General of the state. So all these numbers you are seeing here, we participate in the mix, multiple indicator cluster survey, organized by the federal government. And these values you are seeing here were reports of mix which we are now using as a baseline information to enable us to drive our planning process. So the Planning Commission has a full handshake with the Bureau of Statistics.
Well appreciated. What is your Planning Commission doing? Sorry, with all due respect. What is, because the way you put it, I want to see where the Planning Commission actually is in all this.
If I can just buttress that, sir. The Statistician General's office is embedded in the State Planning Commission. The Executive Secretary, State Planning Commission, was part of a lady, by the way, for those asking for gender mainstreaming. She's a lady. She was totally involved in everything that we were doing. And about 4 of our officers, the SDG desk is in her office. The Director of Planning is in her office. So she's aware of everything that we did here. And when I was making my presentation, I did say that going forward, and part of what we're doing is that the Planning Commission is the warehouse of all of these plans and programs that we're planning, and then the implementation of whatever is contained in all of these documents is domiciled in the State Planning Commission. They have tremendous powers. The governor is the chairman of the State Planning Commission. So every commissioner is under them. Then we have an executive secretary of the rank of a permanent secretary. She is the one that works with the governor's office. We're all there, we're all part of the process, and make sure that everything that has been churned out we are not perfect. I did list it there. I didn't say we were, but we are saying that what we want to do, our overarching goals and objectives going forward, is that all of our planning, all of our budgeting would not be ad hoc, would be evidence-based, data-based, and properly coordinated and synchronized. Thank you, sir.
Okay. I have 1.5 questions. First of all, I'm really surprised that Abia State thinks of itself as an agrarian state. I realize that you have a lot of communities that engage in agriculture, but I would have thought that you will think of yourself from the perspective of being a trade and being, from the perspective of Aba, which it really is not just the Nigerian capital, but the West African capital. And I think for me that's a concern, because I think this is part of the reason that planning has not really been going very well in Abia State. Because in the 1980s and in the 1990s, people came from all over West Africa, to Abia State and to Aba. And so I will think that you will be looking at export and not necessarily looking at investors into the state, but how to improve the state so that people can export. What is it that you're going to be doing to harness the trade, which can totally transform the whole state? I mean, Aba alone can generate all the IGR you need for the whole state. So how is this central, if at all, to your plan?
I lead the Made in Aba office in Abia State. Those that know me on social media, that's probably what they know me more for. We have prioritized it in this administration, and it is something that has given us tremendous mileage. And yes, your history is right. Over time, in the 80s, 90s, Aba has always been there. We're not reinventing the wheel, but then we are just now leveraging one of the 5 pillars. I mentioned 5 pillars. It was agriculture, health, education, oil and gas, and then commerce and industry. We are a highly industrialized state. The Osisioma belt, the Aba belt, all the way to Port Harcourt, River State here are all filled with industries on both sides of the expressway. And I did mention that we just got the license for the first free trade zone in the southeast of Nigeria, Enyimba Economic City. And I was in China in June, and we have anchor investors, 1.6 billion, Rui Group, the largest textile manufacturing or production factory in the world, in China and very invariably in the world. They have signed up to invest there. In fact, geometric power, which was a variable that was giving us problem with electricity, they have also come to invest in geometric power and take up their toxic portfolio so that they can resume production. So we are doing that. I did say we have acquired machines for automated shoe production, and trust me, ma'am, we're doing a lot in industrialization, the Made in Aba campaign, and then harnessing our trade advantages. We're doing quite a lot in that, ma'am. Thank you.
Can we give a round of applause to Abia State for their very robust presentation? You may now
return to your seats.